All right, everybody. So today we'll be working with first hop redundancy protocol, specifically the hot standby routing protocol option inside first hop redundancy. Now, we have this topology that we'll be working with, and as you guys know, the purpose is to make use of full redundancy here. And no matter what happens, if one of our, let's say, router 1 is our default gateway, then if router 1 goes down, the rest of the network will not be impacted by it because we are basically using a different gateway, a virtual gateway, right? So that's the whole idea of first hop redundancy protocols. Now, as I mentioned, we are going to be specifically working with hot standby routing protocol, or hot standby router protocol, I should say, which is one of the versions of first hop redundancy protocol. The other version is VRRP, which stands for Virtual Router Redundancy Protocol. Now, in this exercise, we'll be working with Cisco proprietary first hop redundancy protocol, which is its name Hot Standby Routing Protocol. Now let's jump in and let's get started. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is that we're going to configure our active and standby router. That's basically what we're going to be doing. Now, the IP address that we are going to be using in this demonstration are in this document, which is going to be attached again. And basically what we need to do is to first, we're going to make sure that we can reach our web server. And let's take a look at our network, our traffic. So first and foremost, let's see if we can reach that server. I'm going to PC1. When I open this, and I'm going to open the command prompt, and I'm going to take a look at the traffic going to that web server. So for that, we're going to use trace search, and I'm going to specify that IP address, which is 209.165.200.226. Okay. All right, we see here that the first stop that we are making is the 192.168.1.1, and that happens to be that IP address is looks like it is our router 3. It has it's router 1. That's what it looks like that we have here. So router 1, yeah, 192.168.1.1. Okay, fantastic. Great. All right, so my PC is ipconfig. All right, so my PC IP address is 192.168.1.101, and this is my default gateway. Okay, so as we can see, my my computer is going first to my default gateway, and then it's moving to the next hop that I assume will be router 2. Okay, and then it goes to this until it's finally reaching the web server. Okay. All right, so we have connectivity there. Okay, so that's good. That's so you guys can see 192.168.1.1 is my default gateway. Okay. All right. Now let's see what is the traffic over to my PCB. It's going to be the same command. Okay. Let's see how traffic looks like. Okay. We hit the same. Okay. Very well. Do that one more time. One 168.1.3, which is my default gateway. See, IP config. Yeah. So over my PCB, my default gateway is .3, and my IP address is 103. Okay. Now let's say that I want to create that hot standby or my virtual router. So the first thing we need to do is that we have to go to the interface and then specify our standby version, which is version 2, and we're gonna create a group and we're gonna assign the IP address that we want to use. We're going to set up the priority for that, and we are also going to provide, or we're going to then execute the preempt command. Preempt command specifying that no matter what happens, I will be the standby router, right? Or the active router. Okay, so for that, it looks like we have to go to router 1 and begin with the configuration. So let's jump over to router 1. Okay. And now we are going to take a look at, so my address is 192. So let me see where I'm at to show. Okay, so my 192.168 is gigabit 0/1. Interface 0/1. Okay, now that we are in the interface, we're going to now create the virtual router. Okay, and we're going to use version 2. Okay, now that we're there, we're going to specify the group. Again, standby, group 1, and we're going to use IP. Okay, and the specific address that we want to use for the virtual router. Yeah, the virtual IP address. Now we're going to use, according to documentation, we're going to use the 192.168.1.254. Gonna paste that there. All right. Now we're going to specify the priority for that. Standby, group 1, priority. $150. Perfect. And we're going to also make it a preempt. Group and preempt. All right, good. Well, preempt, what this command do is that we're going to tell that, let's say for example router 1 goes down, then router 3 is going to assume the role of being the active router in this uh, configuration. But as soon as router 1 comes back, because it's gonna have a higher priority, then we are going to regain our status of being the active. That's what preempt do. Now in hot standby routing protocol, this is not enabled by default. If we are using a virtual router redundancy protocol, that will be active by default. But Cisco proprietary uh, hot standby routing protocol is not uh, active by default. All right. Now let's see where we at when it comes to the status. We're going to get out of here and show standby. Okay, it's active. Perfect. Preempt enable. Now the standalone router, or the standby, I'm sorry, is unknown, meaning that router 3 has no configuration yet. So let's go and do that. Let's go and configure our router 3 to be the standby router. So we have the active, router 1 being the active, and router 3 will be the standby. Okay, so it's basically the same configuration. So let's go and configure that. Terminal. Here over router 3 is the same configuration, except that we're not going to change the priority, right? And we're not going to make any changes when it comes to the preempt. We are going to just make the same configuration we did over on router 1, but without changing priorities. That way, it will still remain the default. So, which is going to be lower, priority is 100, whereas router 1 is going to be 150. The higher the priority is here what is going to be chosen uh, to determine which one is going to be the active router. So again, we're going to go to standby over the interface, of course. So let's see, do show IP interface brief gigabit 0/0. Okay, interface 0/0. Standby group 1 IP and 192.168.1.254. All right, with that. Oh, and standby version 2. Very well. Now let's see what can we do over our computers. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at this. If you guys can see, my default gateway over to PCA is the following: 192.168.1.1. Okay. Because That's our uh, default gateway that was configured. You guys can see I can reach the web server. If I do ping the web server 209.165.200.226, okay, I do have a reply. Okay. All right. However, what will happen if my router goes down? So to have a look at that, let me bring my router here and let me go to that interface. Configure terminal. All right. Now shut down. Instead, let's go to the gigabit 0/1 and shut down. Okay, now my interface is down. What will happen? Let's see what happens now when I try to reach the web server. I should not be able to reach it. It should be offline, basically. So bring my computer back. And let's just try to pin that again. You guys can see I'm not able to pin, meaning I cannot reach my web server. Now basically I am offline. Okay. All right. So let me go ahead and do that one more time, but this time I'm going to specify no limit for that ping. So it's going to keep trying to pin basically non-stop. Okay. So I'm gonna keep that there, and I'm going to bring my router interface again up. Let's see. Bring these over here as well. Okay. Timeout, timeout, timeout. My computer cannot communicate. Now let's do a not shutdown. Bringing that interface back up. Once my interface is fully back online, I should be able to, my ping should be able to receive a reply. Okay, and okay, now we have connectivity again. You guys can see I can receive replies. Okay, so it did die for a while, but after I turned that interface back on, it came back up. Now let's see if what happens if I shut it down again. Now I'm timing out. Yeah, so I'm timing out. No shut. Let's bring that back up. Same thing is going to happen over to PC3, right? So just as my PCA cannot jump over and get out of the network using router 3, same way is going to happen with PCB. If I shut down the interface over that router, PCB will not be able to get out of the network because it's not gonna have the ability to see that router 3 went down, therefore dynamically change over to router 1. That's not going to happen, just like it's not happening with PCA. So to avoid that from happening, what we do is that we're going to then change the default gateway. I'm going to stop this eternal ping. Control C here. Alright, so in order to change that, okay, we're going to then use the default gateway for the virtual IP. That's what we're going to use, the virtual IP. Okay, so paste that there. Move along, and I'm going to do the same thing over to PCB. Here I'm saying no, you're going to use this default gateway. Okay. All right. Okay, now that we have that changed, let's see what will happen. I'm going to go back to PCA. Try to do the same thing we did earlier. Okay. As you guys can see, although I changed the default gateway, I'm still able to reach my web server. Okay, because I'm using the virtual default gateway. Now let's watch now the difference when I kill that interface. Move this a little bit to the side. This is router 3. Oh, okay, let me go to router 1. Router 1. Shut down. Okay. Now this interface is down. So my router 1 is down. It's having a little trouble now. But as you guys can see, it immediately went over to router 3 in order to reach the web server. So there was a glitch of 3 pins right here, but it just made the change and automatically readjust. Now all this happens automatically and it's totally transparent to the end user. Okay, now let me just stop that and let's see now the path that I'm using. Okay, and now as you guys can see, instead of using the 192, the 168.1.1, I'm using the .3. My default gateway here, router 1, went down, but I'm still able to reach the web server. Same thing will happen with PCB. Now what I'll do is that I'm going to change that back up with a nut shutdown. I'm going to re-enable that interface. And now let's go ahead and do the same thing over to PCB. I'm going to prompt. You guys can see my first trace route was using, as expected, the default gateway that was configured on that computer, the 168.1.3. Let's see what is the route that we're using now. Okay, so now I'm using 192.168.1.1. Okay, good. Do that one more time. Perfect. Okay, so this is PCB. utilizing that 1.1 Steam. ipconfig. Now the default gateway is going to be 192.168.1.254. Now let me bring this interface down. Now this is my router 3, 192.168.1.3. Okay. I'm going to shut down that interface, gigabit 00. Shut down. I'm going to pin the web server. I should be able to use that. Pinging my web server. Timing out. Okay, so we have a reply. That's how you set up your hot standby routing protocol. Hope that this video will be helpful to you. Thank you for watching. See you in the next.